Okay, boys and girls, today we're going to talk about informative or explanatory writing. We have been talking about this type of writing in class for the last couple of days, and today I'm doing this video just to kind of go over some of the important information that we've done in class and also to go over specific instructions on what to include in each paragraph of an explanatory writing. What is it going to look like? What kind of thesis should I have in an explanatory writing? And then also we're going to quickly go over the writing task that we are currently working on, and I'm going to give you some pointers on helping you come up with a thesis statement for it and also making sure that you have everything that you need to include in your essay. So as you know, an explanatory essay or an informative essay, it means the same thing, right? An informative essay is known also as an explanatory essay, and it gives the reader detailed information about a specific topic or situation. We know that an informative or explanatory essay is usually written in a total of 4 paragraphs. And each paragraph is going to consist of the following. As I'm sure you remember, every single type of essay that we write, that very first paragraph is always called the introduction paragraph, right? That is where we introduce to our reader what we're going to be talking about. We might introduce the topic, we might introduce the source that we will be citing from, and of course we have our thesis in our first paragraph. So the source that we're citing from for our writing this month is our novel Ghost Boys. However, sometimes we could cite from a source that is just an article or maybe a short story. So the source is basically where you're getting your evidence from. And remember that every time you write an essay, the reader might have never read either the article, the text, or the novel. So you do always want to introduce it by giving a short or brief summary of the source. I will show you how to do that as well. The second and the third paragraph are known as our body paragraphs. Remember, we made a connection with the hamburger bun. Every time you eat a hamburger, you always have, obviously, the bread, right? The top and the bottom. And that's like the top bun would be our introduction. We even gave it a great metaphor on how the little seeds on the top of the bun could be like the hook, right? It's like that in the interesting part that grabs the reader's attention. They might look so good, right? And you want to grab it. And that is the introduction, right? And then the body paragraphs would be the middle of our hamburger. For instance, the meat, right? You can't have a hamburger without meat. It wouldn't be a hamburger, would it? So we would have the meat, maybe the lettuce, the tomatoes, the onions, the ketchup, the cheese, right? All of those great details that go inside of our hamburger. That is part of our second and third paragraph. It's our body paragraphs. That's where we include the most detail. That's where we include facts and evidence from the different texts that we're reading. We also will include examples and explain, right? So you'll notice that the second and the third paragraph of an explanatory writing is a lot longer, right, than the first and fourth paragraph. The fourth paragraph is the conclusion. So you know how I mentioned about the hamburger bun? You have the top bun, right, which usually looks different than the bottom bun, right? The bottom bun is usually thinner or slimmer. It doesn't have as much flour, I guess, right, or dough, right? It's not as fat. Basically, though, but we know that they're still both made out of the same material, right? Or the same, not material, but the same ingredients. It's still made out of bread, right? However, it looks different. So a conclusion is also going to look different than your introduction. You might have the same ideas, you might restate your thesis, you maybe you have a wraparound ending, so you might kind of go to your hook and use that as your memorable ending, but it's going to be different in the sense that it's not just repeated, right? So that is the fourth paragraph. Now let's talk a little bit about thesis statements. We know that a thesis statement is one sentence, right? And it's usually in your first paragraph. We said how a thesis statement or that thesis sentence is like the roadmap of your essay, or in modern times, like our GPS, right? It tells us where you're going. It tells the reader where you're going with your ideas. And it also helps you, the writer, by making sure that you are on track to include everything that you said you would have included in your essay. The thesis statement is usually found as the last sentence of your first paragraph. So keep that in mind. And remember also that a thesis statement kind of just answers the prompt, but without too many details, right? You don't want to give all the details there because then you're taken away from your body paragraphs. So it needs to be simple. I usually tell you guys to just simplify, right, what you're going to be saying throughout your essay. So now let's take a look closer at our paragraphs. For paragraph 1, we remember the acronym HAT, right? The hat we put on our head. So the H stands for the hook. That's where you're grabbing the reader's attention. You want to make it interesting. A couple of examples could be asking a question or maybe painting a picture in the reader's mind by starting with imagine or what if or picture this, right? You're kind of taking the reader into the world of what you're talking about. So they make a connection. Automatically they're hooked, right? They're interested. You also want to include in your hook an introduction of the source that you're going to be citing from. And you want to give a short summary of the text. Because as I mentioned before, you know that many of the readers that are reading your essays or your writing, they might have never read the book that you're referring to. So you want to introduce it. You want to include the title of the book. You might even want to include the author and just give a maybe 1 or 2 sentence summary of what the book is all about. And then of course the A and the T are together. You're going to answer the prompt with your thesis. And that's the last part of your first paragraph. So it sounds pretty short. That's okay. Then we're going to take a look at the second and the third paragraph. Those are our body paragraphs. As you know, you're very familiar with our acronym RACER, right? Our method of answering text-dependent questions. Well, we're kind of doing that also in our body paragraphs. Whatever the topic is that you're writing about, you want to divide it into 2 parts. And that's going to be your 2 body paragraphs. And you're following RACER as you are doing that. Don't forget the citing evidence and the explanation part are the most important parts, right? Because that is where you're proving what you're saying. You want to cite evidence using those EBTs. Tell us, according to page blank, or as stated on chapter 5, or as stated on paragraph 5, right? If you're citing from a short text. Or maybe since we're citing from our novel, and our novel is written in first person, one of the EBTs you can use is Jerome states, or according to Jerome, or on chapter 5, Jerome mentions blank, right? Make sure you're using those EBTs. And then, of course, after your evidence, you want to explain with a lot of elaboration. You want to include examples. You want to include your own voice when you're explaining. Mention, if you're talking about bullying and how it affected him, well, how did it affect him, right? Give me more details. Give me more of an explanation of what you think, how it's going to affect him. And then last but not least, we have our 4th paragraph. We think of the acronym AT&T. We know, as I mentioned with the hamburger bun, right? The introduction paragraph and the conclusion paragraph, or paragraph 4, are very similar, but you want to rearrange your ideas in different words. You don't want to sound repetitive, right? So you're going to restate your ideas. You're going to have your thesis restated, right, in different words. And then, of course, you want to end with the zinger. That's your final words, your final thoughts. You want to make it interesting. You want to make it memorable. A good idea is have that wraparound ending, and we'll talk more about that in class. So now, let's take a look at our writing. So we worked on this in class. We took a look at the different parts of getting prepared to write our explanatory essay or our informative essay. The first part was to review the writing task. That's always important, right? Of course, you always have to go back and see what it is that you should be including, right, in your essay. So let's take a look here. So the writing task says, write an informative essay explaining 2 themes seen in the novel Ghost Boys. Cite evidence from the text that fully supports your thoughts. So one thing you're going to ask yourself is, okay, pause. What kind of essay am I writing? Or what kind of writing am I doing? Am I informing you? Am I trying to persuade you? Am I trying to entertain you by writing a story? Right? What is your purpose for writing? Well, it specifically says that you're writing an essay explaining. So I want to highlight that. That's important. And I'm also going to underline it and put it in bold. So I know that I'm writing information. I'm writing to inform you of something. So I'm not really going to have my opinion per se, but I might use my opinion when I explain, right? but I need to make sure that I'm citing evidence that is real from a text. I'm not making things up. And then the topic. Well, okay, what kind of informative essay am I writing? I have to pick two themes, right? Two themes from the novel. Not just one, but two. All right, now I'm ready to start. So I know that I'm writing an informative essay. I know that I have to include two themes from the from the novel that I see. Now, because I'm writing two themes, and if I go back to the body paragraphs, I know that there's two body paragraphs, right? And someone said this, and I think everyone in each of my classes mentioned this. Well, Miss Cunha, if you have to write two themes and you have two body paragraphs, it makes sense to take each of the theme and include them in each of their own body paragraphs, right? So the first theme I think of, I'm going to use that in the first body paragraph. The second theme that I think of, I'm going to use that in the next body paragraph, right? I don't want to put them together because then my reader is going to be confused. All right, so now that I have that, let's go to part two. We're going to pick two of the themes that I'm going to use in my essay. And one of the themes that I want to include is the one about bullying. Or actually, I'm going to use the racial prejudice one. So if I remember correctly, and let me just open it up here. Give me just 1 second. Let me open up. Remember that we can go back to our evidence paper, or the article, or I'm sorry, not the article, the activity that we did with the evidence. Okay, I'm going to okay, the one theme that I want to include, and I'm gonna type it here. Okay, so sorry guys. I hope you fast forward through that. All right, so theme one is about racial prejudice, but we all know that a theme is a statement, right? It needs to be a sentence. It's not just a topic. So I'm going to say people of color are blocked from health, wealth, opportunity, justice, and safety. Safety because of racial prejudice. All right, so that is the first theme that I'm going to use in my essay because I think that's a theme that I see in the novel, right? And now notice that the directions also say to highlight the topics in my theme. So I know the topic here is racial prejudice, so I'm going to highlight that. The next theme that I want to include is the theme about bullying, right? Remember that topic? So the bullying one said, bullying is a big problem in our schools, and children are being affected by it. Okay, that is the next theme that I'm going to include in my essay. And the topic here is bullying, so I'm going to highlight that as well. Now, there's a reason why we're highlighting that, okay? We'll find out in 1 second. So now that I have the two themes, and I know where I'm going with my essay, so I know that my body paragraphs, the first body paragraph that I have, or paragraph number 2, I'm going to talk about this theme, right? And how this theme is seen in the novel. And then the next body paragraph, or paragraph number 3, I'm going to talk about this theme and how it's seen in the novel. All right, I'm ready to move on to part 3. On part 3, now I need to create my thesis statement. Reminder, a thesis statement is one sentence that tells the reader what the rest of your essay is going to be about, right? It answers the prompt, but without too many details. So the prompt was this up here, right? What are the two themes seen in the novel? So I know that that needs to be the theme or the thesis that I need to include. However, if I use these two sentences as my thesis statement, that's going to be a run-on sentence, right? I can't say the themes in Ghost Boys are people of color are blocked from health, wealth, opportunity, justice, and safety because of racial prejudice, and bullying is a big problem in our schools, and our children are being affected by it. That is a run-on sentence, right? There's more than one idea in that sentence. So let's simplify it. Instead of stating the exact themes word by word, let's just state the topics. And then in the body paragraphs, right, where all of the interesting details and elaborations go, there I will explain what the theme is and how it's seen in the novel. And I'll use the full sentence. But for now, for my thesis statement, I'm just going to use the topics. So take a look at my example. It says there are several themes found in the novel. One of them includes the topic of racial prejudice, while another involves bullying. Notice this is kind of like showing my reader, right, the person reading my essay, what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the themes and that there's more than one theme in the novel. One is about racial prejudice and the other one is about bullying, and those are the two that I'm going to talk about. Notice my thesis statement is formal. I didn't say, today I am going to tell you about the themes in the novel. One is about racial prejudice and the other one is bullying. No, I didn't use that because I'm not writing a speech. Instead, I'm writing an essay, so it needs to be written in formal language. So please do not use the word I, or I think, or I'm going to tell you, or I am writing about. Nope, those are not formal sentences. So use this. Now, if you want to use my example, I'm going to just copy it here for 1 second. You can definitely use my example, except instead of writing racial prejudice, you're going to fill in what your first topic was. And instead of writing bullying, you can fill in what your second topic was. If you're using the same topics as me or the same themes, that's okay, because remember, we did 3 together, right? You came up with the 4th one on your own, so you can also use your 4th one if you wish. If you want to use your theme that you came up with on your own, you totally can. The option is yours. However, in this essay, you only need to pick 2. So pick 2 that you can best explain, right? Because this is an explanatory essay, so you are going to need to explain. So join me next time for part number 4 of our writing task. I hope this was helpful.